That night, the Swiss guards were perplexed. The Holy Father was not in his room. No one had seen him leave, but he was not there. When they finally found him, sitting on the sidewalk next to a man wrapped in cardboard, they did not say a word. In that silence they understood that they were witnessing something bigger than themselves. It was a sharp February evening. The lights of Rome flickered among the ancient stones like candles stirred by the wind, while in the Vatican everything flowed to the predictable rhythm of prayers. Everything, except one detail: Pope Francis, a man with a gaunt face and a gaze as warm as embers under the ashes, was not in his room. That same restlessness that sometimes drove him outside the walls had taken hold of his chest and no longer let him breathe. He had asked his assistant to remain alone in the chapel for a moment, but instead of kneeling he had walked lightly toward a side door, lifted his cloak over his shoulders and slipped into the darkness of the streets behind the colonnade. No one noticed. He mingled with the passers-by like any pilgrim, heading for Borgo Santo Spirito. Every now and then he stopped. He observed the improvised beds under the arches, the plastic inflated by a sleeping breath, the black sacks that became pillows. Then he resumed his journey, the stick of his step more interior than physical. At the corner with Via del Fornaci he saw him, a man huddled against the wall, a long gray beard, eyes glued to the sky. He was mumbling broken sentences, perhaps a prayer, perhaps a reproach. Pope Francis approached and, without breaking the spell of that solitude, sat down next to him, letting the silence act as an introduction. When the homeless man turned around, he noticed the small cross hanging from his interlocutor's neck, not a jewel, but a simple, lived-in piece of wood. "Are you a priest?" They spoke little. The man said that his name was Luigi, of a workshop he had left in a hurry, of a bottle that had stolen oxygen from his life, and of a daughter he had not seen for 10 years. He spoke and, almost with amazement, realized that the words still came out warm with affection despite the time. When he fell silent, Pope Francis asked only, "Are you coming back here tomorrow? Can we sit together again?" Luigi nodded. Shortly afterward the guards arrived, on tiptoe. The head of the service opened his mouth, but a gesture from the Pope stopped him. That scene was sacred. The Holy Father stood up, left his companion a smile and disappeared among the orange lights of the street lamps. That same night, back at the barracks, the two youngest halberdiers remained silent until the door closed. One whispered, "St. Francis did just that." The veteran shrugged, "Our Pope is capable of surprising us every day." None of them slept peacefully. Their iron armor seemed too noisy after having seen so much silence recount God. Under the bridge, meanwhile, Luigi took a wooden rosary out of his frayed backpack. He hadn't prayed it in years, he just let it slide through his fingers as one does with memories, and in the new gloves, which had mysteriously appeared, he felt a warmth that massaged his bones. At dawn, in the Vatican, the kitchen smelled of coffee and toast. Pope Francis entered with a worn notebook. He asked for more sandwiches than usual to be prepared, enriched with that hazelnut cream that children love. In the notebook was a list of names and street corners: Mario at Ponte Mazzini, Gloria under the porticos of the Chiesa Nuova, Luigi on Via del Fornaci. Sister Lucia, without questions, mixed flour, yeast and mercy in the same gesture. The next evening Luigi was already there, his eyes bright as rediscovered embers. In his hand he held an old, rusty harmonica. He explained that a German tourist had given it to him and that he no longer knew how to play it, but he tried every now and then. The Pope pulled two still warm sandwiches from his cloak, then a pocket-sized gospel. Luigi read aloud, awkward and moved, until he stumbled upon "I was a stranger and you welcomed me." He stopped, closed his eyes, put the little book down, brought the harmonica to his lips and began an out-of-tune blues. A girl getting off the night bus, an intern at the Bambino Gesù hospital, recognized the Pope and was petrified. He waved at her. The girl took off her headphones and handed them to Luigi. "There's some real blues in there, maybe it'll help you find the time." Luigi smiled, and so did the Pope. "Now we have a reason to meet tomorrow." Marcus, the Swiss recruit, asked for permission to leave that evening. Disguised as a tourist, he followed his Pope at a distance and left a thermos of hot chocolate at the homeless man's feet. When Luigi found it, he looked up questioningly. The Pope commented laughingly, "Even angels bring chocolate." The next night Luigi was overflowing with words. He shouted his story: gambling debts, stolen money, his brother never forgiven, the shame of seeing his daughter again. It was a torrent in full flood. The traffic lights changed, the buses rattled, but that sidewalk became the largest confessional in the world. After he finished his story, Luigi burst into tears. Pope Francis placed his hands on his shoulders and whispered, "No sin is stronger than mercy." They recited a whispered Our Father together, which seemed to swell the river of peace to the sky. The next morning, a brand new file appeared in the office of the Apostolic Almoner, Luigi C., born in Civitavecchia, street artist. Next to the name was a note: he has musical talent, put him in touch with the Caritas School of Performing Arts. No one knew who had written down that recommendation. Miracles do not leave signatures. 10 days later, when the story had spread like a whisper through the corridors, in a side aisle of St. Peter's, after closing time, a small group of faces marked by life gathered: African boys with gems, 2 missionary nuns with golden voices, a violin student, Marcus with his uniform hidden under a civilian coat. Luigi, with his hair cut and a coat recovered from the Caritas wardrobe, sat on a stool, tuned the harmonica and started a 5-note blues that climbed up to Michelangelo's dome and came back down clean, powerful. The Pope, without ring or mozzetta, beat time with his hand on his knee. No telephone recorded, the music remained written only on the marble and in hearts. At midnight, outside the colonnade, the Pope gave Luigi a train ticket. "You're leaving tomorrow. Your daughter is waiting for you in Civitavecchia, with Caritas. I'll come to see you." Luigi's mouth dropped open, but he couldn't find the words. He brought the harmonica to his mouth and intoned 2 quick notes, a thank you that was enough for the entire universe. Pope Francis embraced him as one embraces a returning brother. A few weeks later, in a ragu-smelling kitchen near the port of Civitavecchia, a young woman pinned a slightly crumpled note to the refrigerator. For Luigi, who taught the Pope the beauty of silence. P.S. No one is the one under the bridge for God. Every evening, before sitting down to dinner, the woman would touch it with her fingers, as if to greet its content of hope. Then she would knock on a tiny study line with sheet music and call, "Dad, it's ready." He would come out with his harmonica in his pocket, a broad smile and a moment of sacred fear, because when God gives you back your life, you don't get used to the miracle even after 100 dinners. And if today, among the salty alleys of that port, you hear a harmonica that intertwines blues and litanies, know that it is the sound of a man who has returned home and of a Pope who continues to walk beyond its walls, still seeking street corners where the gospel waits to be written. And you, can you imagine yourself sitting next to someone the world has forgotten? If this story has touched you, write mercy in the comments, share the video and subscribe to the channel Light of Jesus today. Because every day, you too can be someone's light.